So we got this really stupid and fun idea of making a video on how the S3 would fare in 2019. But was it a really stupid decision? So obviously the S3 lacks all the features that today's flagship phones feature. For example, it has no wireless charging, no multi-camera setup, no IP certification, and no fingerprint scanner. Basically nothing fancy. The S3 came out in 2012 and it was regarded as one of the best phones ever. Well, you might be wondering what it's like right now. So basically I got the idea of making this video when I saw that my S3 beat my friend's iPhone 5S in a boot up test, which is obviously nothing small for a phone that's only seen 2 huge software updates in its life. I used the S3 for around a month and then I switched back to my Honor 8X, which I used for a while, and now I'm back on my S9. The S3 came with Android 4.4 KitKat straight out of the box, and it wasn't really the greatest Android OS at the time. It wasn't really the greatest OS at all at the time. Samsung gave the Android 4.4 KitKat a major overhaul, which wasn't really the best when they put on their heavy TouchWiz skin on top of it. It had a lot of features that I didn't really find useful, and some of them were gimmick, like the Smart Stay feature where you looked at the camera and the screen stayed on. I didn't really use it that much, although it was useful in a couple of contexts, like when I was going for bed. One huge drawback of the S3 was that it does not have an emoji plugin, so your texting game is obviously going to be a bit weak with this phone. The Galaxy S3 has a 4.8-inch 720p Super AMOLED display, which is higher than some flagship phones. Watching videos and playing games on this phone is fine even for today's standards. The viewing angle is great and the colors are sharp and they have a lot of contrast, which is, the screen is really great even for today's standards. The speakers on this phone are great, but I tend to use my earphones more. I've got the tuned AKG ones that I got with my S9 out of the box. First of all, let's talk about performance. I've had this phone for 7 years now, and I've done the factory reset twice. Well, I haven't done it in the past 3 or 4 years, which explains the lag that you see on the screen right now. The S3 came with a 1GB RAM and 16 and a 32GB memory straight out of the box. But Samsung later released a remastered Neo version which had 2GB of RAM and up to 64GB of storage. Now I've got the 1GB and 16GB variant right here. I had to use an SD card on this since it only had 16GB. It can be expanded up to 64GB of storage. The build quality of the S3 isn't really that great, but it is fine even for today's standards. It's made out of plastic and the curved back makes for a great feel in the hand. It is small, compact, and not that slippery. Since it has a removable back, it was easy for me to swap out the batteries. This was the old battery, and I swapped it out when I noticed that the battery life was getting kind of dull. So video on the back camera is decent. It shoots at 1080p 30 fps. As you can see, the video is quite stable, but not that stable. This is what video looks like on the front camera. It records at 720p. It's fairly decent even in this bright light. Remember that the S3 released 7 years ago. Samsung just released the S10. And what would it be like in 7 years? Like this video and drop it down in the comments if you want us to make a video on what the S10 would be like in another 7 years. All in all, the S3 is a usable phone in 2019, but as I mentioned before, it lacks most of the features that people look for these days. So not a lot of you are going to try this at home. Thank you.